So we'll call the meeting to order. And we are working under the revised open meeting laws, and this is an open meeting. It has been posted. You can read the governor's directions here. And if you have questions about open meeting laws, feel free to contact Town Hall. Please do not contact me. The agenda is to approve the May minutes, and then to have a discussion around the community choice aggregation communication plan. John is going to lead us through a draft presentation, and we can discuss that. Cheryl and I can also give a brief update on the Green Community Competitive Grant application that we submitted. And then I just wanted to get general updates from various folks, as shown here, on Eversource, the Waste Reduction Task Force, the tree policy, and the Climate Action Plan in master plan activities. With the limited agenda, I don't think we need to necessarily go into a lot of detail. It seems like this isn't a good time for folks, so we'll be brief on our agenda items. But I did want to go through the community choice aggregation plan in some detail and get feedback from folks on this. And John is going to be leading us through that. So I'll stop sharing my screen. John, are you going to be sharing your screen?
Sure, I'll do that.
I need to permit you to do that. What's going on here? Okay, you should now have permission to share.
Okay.
I'm sorry, John, before you start, I skipped over the minutes. For Eileen's sake, I'll apologize again. I just now noticed that you did send out the draft of last May's meeting minutes, and I did not have a chance to look at them. I didn't see it when it came in. And so we'll skip over that agenda item. And if I have any feedback, I'll provide that back to you, Eileen, and then distribute it to the rest of the committee for review before the next meeting.
Great. Yeah, sorry, I forgot to remind you about it.
No, my fault. Thank you for putting the notes together. Could you also take notes again? And I promise to pay attention this time.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
Thank you. John?
Okay. Well, welcome everybody. I want to talk a little bit about the plan that we've been putting together about the Westboro Community Choice Rollout Communications Plan. I put together a couple drafts. I've had discussions last week with Pete and with Carol and with Eileen. We're aiming at trying to do a presentation to the Board of Selectmen next week if they can allow us a slot. And wanted to review it with people today to see any ideas people had. And we're going to be reviewing it also with the Assistant Town Manager, with Shelby Marshall, and perhaps some others later this week. So we can basically then be ready to present to the Board of Selectmen next week. So this is a relatively short presentation. I think everybody here was at on May's meeting. But if there's something you don't remember, please let me know. One of the problems I worry about is that people get a little confused about this electricity aggregation plan. Don't remember.
Can I just jump in? I'm sorry to interject, but I just got a call from Carol that she's trying to get in. And I don't know if she needs to be let into the meeting, but I wanted to be sure that we were aware that she was trying to get into the meeting while John is doing his presentation.
Um,
Okay,
Yeah, let me,
I just sent her the link.
I sent it also after you had said you had trouble. Um,
If she can't get in, she'll probably call me again.
Okay, there's Carol. She's
Okay.
in the waiting room now.
Okay, sorry for the interruption.
That's right.
Go ahead, John. I can see the waiting room and I just let Carol in. So if anybody else shows up, I'll let them in.
Okay, so as I said, we're hopeful we will be able to make a presentation to the Board of Selectmen next week. We're not yet sure of that schedule. And Pete, Carol, and Eileen and I have had at least one iteration on this presentation, looking for other ideas. Eric, you and Cheryl, you've not seen this yet, so you're our target audience. We expect lots of comments. Are you ready?
Great.
Okay.
Go for it.
So here's a quick slide. You know, we want to talk about what we hope to do to help the town roll out the new electricity plan. The basic agenda is want to review the communication plan for this program, agree on a launch schedule, and agree on a new name for the aggregation program. And the recommendation from Carol, and I think we all agree, is Westboro Power Choice. Sounds like a really good, much better name than the current one, which is Community Choice, which nobody knows what Community Choice is. You know, whatever you're choosing, but Power Choice is much closer. So I'm going to run through that briefly and go through some quick background. Westboro selected a new supplier for its aggregation from bids that it received on April 29th. These were same-day bids, as some people may know, so they were accepted the same. They had to be accepted or rejected the same day. The bid was accepted, and in due time, the town will announce the specifics of that. Our job is to promote the details of the plans and try to help Westboro residents make good choices about it where they need to do it. The new plan takes effect with the November 2020 meter read, so it's still 5 months away, depending on which time of month your meter gets read. And your account will be automatically switched to the new plans in November. No specific action is required. You'll automatically get in there. So our job really is to explain to people what the options are and whether, if you want to make a change, how you might do that. And one of the things we know is that many people, sort of anecdotal, but many people in town aren't even aware there's an electrical aggregation program that most people in town are members of. So part of our problem is to overcome sort of a history of neglect or history of non-promotion. So people at least know that they're in a plan and know that they have an option should they wish to choose it. So that's sort of where we're sitting. Just so understand where we're at, the new plans is a threefold set of plans, where the default plan, the one that people get switched into, more than 99% of the people are in the so-called default plan. They will automatically get picked into something that we are tentatively calling the standard plan, and it will contain 36% renewable energy in the 2020. Note that and there are two options for somebody who is a gung-ho environmentalist, like presumably everybody on this call. You will probably want to switch yourself, if you haven't already done so, into the 100% plan, which will be 100%. This is renewable. I'm going to say, we don't say this here, but renewable means the local renewable, technically called Class 1 renewable energy. It's a mouthful, but it's the good stuff. It's the renewable energy that feeds into the New England grid. And the other alternative is to switch down to a basic plan that only has the minimum renewable energy required by law. It's a bit cheaper. And we want to just explain to people what these three options are. You have to do nothing if you like where you are to begin with, but you may switch either way at any time, including just before or at the time of the changeover or in the future. So the basic thought we have is we want to sort of use the June to August time frame as a preparation time and launch the public outreach program on September 1. We're just going to take descriptive materials and FAQs and such, with some help and review from the town manager office of Prager, and get them all prepared, be available on websites, available other things like that. And we'll plan some community meetings, and we'll figure out how to do outreach and publicity, especially at this time of COVID. It may be difficult to have face-to-face meetings, posters, things like a number of things maybe have to be different given how we're doing it. We also want to be especially careful to try to find ways to reach cost-sensitive residents, and I would say also cost-sensitive small businesses who may be interested in moving to the so-called basic plan, which will be about 5% cheaper in that range, or a bit under that actually. And then the launch will be at the beginning of September. It will be started, among other things, with a press release from the town. And magically stuff would appear on the town website. Then through the September-October timeframe, various other ways of publicizing the program and information about it will be done. Various kinds of meetings. We might use billboards, posters, the school backpack program, inserts and bills and notices from the town. Whatever mechanisms we can find that we can do, we'll use that to make people aware of the program and the options they have. And then finally, after the switchover, we'll continue to support this program as needed, and we're interested in also then finding a way to provide some education around what we call predatory alternate energy suppliers. And for the last 20 years, Massachusetts has allowed alternate energy suppliers to market their programs around Massachusetts. Some of them do not have, some of them are probably just fine programs, but many people have found that there are a number that are really not great programs. They are misleading, overpriced, sometimes with exit fees, and they often prey on people who perhaps can least afford to be paying extra for electricity, and maybe we can find a way to help educate about that and help people get out of bad, or not get into bad situations, and if they're already in them, get out of that. But that be our focus later in the year or next year. Any questions on that?
I have a question. It's probably fair to assume that most people, despite all this, and I'm hoping it's very successful, will probably just kind of ride it out and end up in the middle one, the standard. And are we getting to the point where we know what the price will be, and so we can kind of get a sense of what the difference will be in their bills, or do we not have those? Do you not have those numbers yet?
We have them. Pete and I have heard them, but under a confidentiality agreement, we're not free to talk about it. Town has to make that decision of what they're doing. The price may wiggle a little bit in like 1/100 of a cent kind of a range.
Yep.
Because of some regulations that are not quite finalized, or we don't think they're yet finalized. So, but I can say the difference between the basic and the standard, we believe, is certainly under 5%.
Yep.
On the bill.
But at some point the number will be known, and because
yeah, absolutely. But by the launch time, we have to have it a bit. That mail, the announcement, I believe I'm correct in saying that announcement has to say who the supplier is and what the prices are, and I think that's a DPU requirement. So on or before that time, that would be public knowledge.
Yep.
John,
Yep.
just on your answer, I wanted, you just referred to 5%. Could you say that again, what you said?
So the difference between the standard and the basic, we believe the basic will be somewhat less than the standard, but it'll be under 5% less, or vice versa. The standard will be less than 5% more than the.
It's way less than that. I would say $50
we
to
say three?
$60 for an average customer. $50 to $60 per year for an average customer.
Who's spending? I think there was a percentage. I can certainly give that number. I think people are sometimes interested in percent. What do you think? Should I use percent or an absolute dollar?
I prefer the absolute dollar, but if others think percent, I would just be sure you get a good percent. I don't think it's 5%. I think you're overstating it. I think it might be 0.5%.
Well, let me double check that. I'll have those numbers, and we'll clear that.
So you all set, Pete?
Yeah, I just want, I guess part of, maybe I'm not all set. So John is going through a presentation, which is kind of a dry run for the Board of Selectmen. So what I'd propose maybe is to let John run all the way through it and then think about it from the perspective of the Board of Selectmen or the audience viewing the Board of Selectmen meeting. What should we be prepared for? I think your questions are good, but I kind of wanted to hear John's kind of uninterrupted pitch. Like, I don't think the Board of Selectmen will start asking questions in the middle. So I just let him run all the way through it.
Well, there certainly is at least one select person who sometimes breaks in, but I won't. Who knows? Well, fine. Let me go. There's not a huge one. So this is the general scheme that we're going to help with the preparing the information and with various methods to make the information available and provide sessions with people to explain it and answer questions. So that, this is a big departure from what we've done the last 6 years, which is essentially nothing. We have, the town really hasn't had time to do it and hasn't had a priority for the town staff to do it. So Westboro ability is to contribution to the town is to help launch a publicity program, which we've never been able to have before. And a couple of recommendations we want to get the Board of Selectmen to weigh in on and support. One is to rename the program to Westboro Powered Choice. Current name, Westboro Community Choice, is sort of vague. It creates a lot of confusion. Most people we talk to have no idea what it means. Choice about what? Power choice as a term is more direct and is used in one form or another by a number of other towns. So we're asking the Board of Selectmen requesting the Board of Selectmen to ask the town manager to work out the name change with the help of our consultants. It probably needs a nod of the head from the Department of Public Utilities, Peregrine. The consultants believe this is straightforward, but we'd sort of like to get confirmation before we go out with a name and have to retract it. The original name was part of the name Community Choice was part of the original program plan submitted to the DPU 6 years ago now. The second thing is I'll make sure everybody's comfortable with launching public outreach on September 1. That's a couple months before the plan goes into effect. Seems like that's enough time to get the word out and keep the idea fresh, keep the information fresh on people's minds. So if they want to do something, they'll still be able to do it within the time frame of the new plan switchover. So we're asking them basically just to support both of these recommendations. And that's it. So trying to keep it to about 4 or 5 slides. We talked a little bit about, just sidelight, we talked a bit about whether we went into a lot more detail. All the various materials, I think we erred on the side of simplicity. But I guess from Cheryl and Eric's viewpoint as seeing this for the first time, what do you think?
I agree with your kind of less is more approach. It's nice and sleek and does the good job. Maybe some of the things that you can anticipate, and maybe I might stumble on them now as far as what the questions might be. You could have slides after this slide to have the visual. And here's what I'm thinking, and you folks, of course, speak to it. I could be wrong here. Something is changing, and the Board of Selectmen has to be thinking, if I get stopped in the parking lot outside of Roach Brother, am I going to be able to explain this to someone as to what's changing? And the second one, and I think it's the lower hanging fruit, easier to take care of. Will they be able to say, sounds like you didn't hear about it, but here are the multiple times and places and community advocate, billboard, mailer in your water bill, et cetera, in which you at least were informed. So as far as what's changing is what I think would be helpful to have, and I hate to put something on your plate, so I'll just think it out loud. It might be relatively easy for you to do, is a copy of a back of a bill like that I get right now that has an arrow pointing to, all right, here's your kilowatt hours and here's what you currently pay. And then maybe below it, it has the same bill for a person that opts to go to the 100%, the person who's going to just migrate to the standard, and a person that would rather have the lesser cost / lesser green. There's probably not a lot of people out there that don't want the green energy. It's going to be about the cost. So, and because the bills are confusing to read, so I think a visual will be very helpful as to, here's where you look on your bill to get a sense of how much, because there's the delivery fee, right? And then there's the fee for kilowatt hours. And I don't know if both of those are going to change. You probably know, John, a lot more about it than I, but I think a slide like that maybe even could be a handout for that nervous Board of Selectmen person who is now tasked with explaining it, at least having something that they could turn to, because the safest thing is to do nothing. And of course, we want to encourage people to at least be ready for what's coming and educate them as to, here's why you want to do it. And maybe, look, it's not that much of a cost difference.
So those are good points. We have been in front of the selectmen a couple different times in the past. And prior to the town accepting bids, we were there proposing the notion the town move to this 3-tier plan, the standard plan with extra renewable energy in it, a basic plan, and 100% renewable energy plan, which the selectmen did support. I think we did explain a bit about the bills at that time.
Yeah, I agree, Eric.
So the question is, do we maybe need it as a slide? The problem is that we don't have the ability to control talk about the prices at this point. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
No, it could be at the point that you can, maybe it's post September 1st or October.
Definitely post September 1st, we'd have that kind of information available and for at least presentations and maybe some versions on websites where, I don't know yet. I don't think
Yeah, the Board of Selectmen are totally aware of the 3-tier, and they know the prices, and they know the $50 to $60 for the average customer, the difference between the standard and basic. So this is about the communication plan and not about, are you on board with this? Because they've already given the approval and we're under contract, so there's no backing out now.
Oh yeah, no, I get that. I'm just approaching it from what they're going to be thinking as to what position they may be in as they get constituents asking them to explain it. So something like that they've got handy, saying, on your bill, if you look at how many kilowatt hours you get, here's the 3. It could go to this price, this or this. So I know that they're on board, and that's awesome. But I'm just thinking they might be tasked with helping people understand it better.
Yep.
So, yeah.
We're hoping that we can produce material that might, for example, be on a website and handouts that would be clear enough that for at least some people, they'd be able to read that. And the selectman or somebody else could say, there's a good bunch of information there. Take a look at it. That's not clear. I'll put you in contact with somebody who can explain it for you or something.
Yep.
You need more answers. We could be. Then we can shunt them to an information session or so.
I might add, those kinds of questions are exactly what they're sort of handing off to us to preempt, right, in our education program.
Right.
So there's all this communication is to prevent them from getting stopped in the parking lot and having to explain it. So just, we need to do that really well.
Oh, yeah, the presentation, I think it's good to be simple. It's for the Board of Selectmen, that's fine. I don't know if they're gonna wanna know and with more specificity how you plan to reach out to, how you're gonna reach out to the public, like, and with, you know, in a little more specific ways, but it's probably just the usual ways, so. But I do think it might be helpful if there was one kind of go-to place where everyone, every resident or person in the town could see a lot of visuals like Eric's talking about, like an easy to understand but comprehensive explanation of what it is and how it's different. And it could just be a link to a website, but that would have to be, you know, the link would have to be embedded in all the communications. And if necessary, a telephone number for people who need to have someone tell it to them out loud. So maybe you have to round up a volunteer who can deal with that or something. But some people just have trouble understanding from reading. So,
John, if you could go back to the one that has the 4 time slots.
This one?
Yeah. I think Cheryl's got an interesting point that maybe adding to this slide, Peregrine's going to have the, you know, the main website for vetting this, and all of the content is going to be on the Peregrine website. I think it might be worth highlighting that website on this slide.
Yeah, I didn't sort of put their brand on. I said information on or through the town website. That's basically all I referred to.
It was one of the notes that I added, John.
Pardon me?
That was one of the notes that I added, was to address the website, because that should be when you list what it is that our plan is going to be. That's part of it. That's a big part of it. The
Right.
Mass Power Forward website is going to be where we have a ton of our information, and that will be up prior to any announcement to the community. Right?
Right.
So
Yeah, I think
that whole
when I saw
section
a town website, I thought of the existing town website, not the community choice aggregation website that we hope to refresh. So I didn't think the right thing when I saw that.
right,
All right.
which
So
is why it needed to be different bullets, clear. I mean, there's a lot, I think, about the rollout that could really be tightened up. That whole slide could be made much more clear. And there are 2 different websites that'll be on there, that'll be listed. It'll be the Massachusetts one and the town one. But that's definitely something that they should know is going to exist.
When you say Massachusetts one, what are you referring to?
Mass Power, what is it? Mass Power Choice will have our page on their website. That's where all the other towns have their.
That's the one managed by. That's the website managed by Peregrine, I believe.
Yes, it is. Yes. So that needed to be a bullet by itself. But that whole section, I thought, could maybe be simplified and maybe clarified what it is we're going to actually do.
That's fine. I can.
Could I suggest that I kind of would like to see the list of things that we're going to do. It seems like it's quite a few items that it really should be its own slide. I know we're trying to keep the slides minimal, but it would be add a lot of detail to this. And I think since they really want to know that we're communicating this well, that giving those details in the supplemental slide would be comforting to them to know, okay, they're going to do these 2 websites. We're going to have these other methods of outreach. Maybe I'm off base, but that's.
Well, when we talked last week, several days ago, I had a somewhat busier slide, and I thought I got the sense that I should be simplifying it. So maybe
Yeah, well, that's why I suggest maybe, I think, a different slide that provides that detail about, plan community meetings and outreach and publicity methods. That's a great bullet point here, I think, maybe slightly different worded. But then the details of, okay, these are our specifics for outreach and the website.
Well, I could certainly
on a
create a
separate
second
page.
slide that would have.
It's just my opinion, I don't know.
Well, first of all, I think I hear 2 things. One, we should be clear that everything's up and there's a new, hopefully, we'll say a new clear website. They'll have all the program information on it available, and it'll be available you can reach it through the town website, or we'll have links to it available in various literature and other forms so people can get to it. That's one thing. And then we could have a second slide that would list a number of those things we talked about as various forms of outreach and meetings and materials and the like, sort of saying the things we'll do will, are include at least the following or something like that. So these are the kinds of things we're currently considering. And that's what we'll refine over the next 90 days.
Yeah,
actually, not less than that now.
I think our concern
70 days, 60 days.
I think our concern when we talked about it last week was getting too much in the weeds on that stuff with the Board of Selectmen. So I guess that, so I understand that maybe we don't want to provide them that much detail if we think we're getting them too much involved in the details of the communication. But on the other hand, they might be curious about it.
I think whether you make it a backup slide or in the primary presentation flow, having a slide which lists the deliverables sounds like a good idea. I did want to also comment that Carol, I think Carol and Eileen have both referred to having 2 websites. I only know of 1 website. What is the 2 website thing you're referring to?
So I guess the second website I was thinking would be on information on sustainable Westboro. So you're right, there's only 1. There's only the Peregrine managed one that's the Massachusetts Power Choice.
It's going to hopefully be called the Westboro Power Choice website.
Right. But also I would imagine there's going to be something, I would hope that we're putting something on our town website as well.
It would just say, go to the Westboro Power Choice website for all the detailed information.
Okay.
I think we should load it all in one place. Having it in 2 places.
Sure.
I think that might depend if, because it's easy to link a PDF, just like they do for any document on the town website. You could link to like a PDF. It depends if the Peregrine site is really catering for your audience to understand what's happening, or if they're just putting up the stuff because they're obliged to.
No,
So
it's
absolutely,
absolutely, we get to specify it and correct me if I'm wrong. Do you folks feel like Peregrine's gonna restrict what we can put on that Westboro Power Choice website?
No.
The others that we've looked at are very detailed and very informative. I'm pretty impressed with them myself, so.
Yeah, so my only thing was put it all in one place. If you put it in 2 places, then people could think they're in the full site and they're only in half of the site, and the information they need is in the other half.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I think Sustainable Westboro and other places are just entry points, ways to get to that site.
Yes.
It is often hard to find things on the town website. We all know that. So anything we can do to make it easier for people to find their way to the right information. that'd be terrific.
Yeah.
One other question, John, and this may not fall exactly what you're asking for, but I'll ask anyways, is the town's plan, because it's always good to lead by example, are they going to, when the fire department, police department, schools, et cetera, what's their plan? Will they be doing the standard, or are they going, or as a town, are we going to lead by example and do the higher 100% sustainable or renewables?
The town does not participate in the irrigation program. It's made its own arrangements about electricity for various, and maybe Pete can talk about that, but they're not, they're tied up in various
Okay,
contractual commitments right now and can't participate.
okay.
Yeah.
And do
That's
you
the
know
first
if
thing
the,
that
sorry, do you know if any of the electricity generated here on those very visible solar panels you see along 495 or at Harvey's, would that actually be some of the energy that people would be tapping into when, if they were to go to the 100% local renewables?
I can speak from ignorance about the Harvey. I think I've heard that Jim Harvey sold the solar energy credits, the SRECs, to somebody, because that's the value part, and the electrons without the solar credits are fed into the local grid.
In Westboro, the town bought a power purchasing agreement from Jim Harvey and bought those electrons.
But they didn't
So-
buy the solar credits.
That's correct.
So we cannot claim to be using
That's correct.
solar energy. We're just using not unspecified electrons.
We're getting cheap electricity from a power purchasing agreement, but somebody else is getting the credit for using renewable energy. And
Yeah,
the way those renewable energy credits, they go into a broker system. And for example, in the new standard contract, we have 20% more. They're just going and buying RECs from that broker process to give Westboro Power Choice customers credit for that
Yep.
renewable energy. So it could come from Jim Harvey, it could come from any place in New England or in Massachusetts, I'm not sure.
Right.
So presentation-wise, any other feedback?
it might be sort of nitpicky, but on the slide with the 3 circles, you can go back to that one that shows them. Left to right is good. If the green circle on my screen,
Eric, we lost you.
all right, higher, and then you
Eric,
have sort of the lower
Eric,
ones.
we lost your voice. Could you repeat that? Sorry, Eric, we're not hearing you.
Sorry, am I back?
Yes,
I was just saying, layout wise here, the dark green circle, maybe just to do one just to look, see what it looks like. If it was not only on the left, which indicates better, right, first place there, but if it was raised up, so you have here the second one and then kind of the lower version. I don't know, this does look neat, but that could sort of send a signal that here's what you want to aspire to, this first place, the second, and then the lower in the basement, third place. Just an idea.
Well, one of the good things is that Peregrine has a graphics artist, and I think we're going to rely on
Oh, good, yeah.
that person's when we put the stuff out for real. You know, I've worked with graphic artists in the past, and they often have very, very insightful comments. So I think if questions like that, we want to direct toward that kind of person.
Yeah, we could default to
How
them.
would you test that? Maybe you want to visually test that with 10 different people. I don't know. Different people see different things when they see 10 different people see the different things in the same presentation. So
Yeah.
it's a good point, and we need to field test it in some way or another.
yeah, and that's an important point John's making, that this is not the collateral that's going to the residents. This is just for the Board of Selectmen who already have seen the 3 circles in a little bit different layout and stuff. I did want to ask this committee for feedback on the names of the plans. This is the first, other than our little group that prepared this, the first time we looked at these names. The plans had not been named when we last talked to the board. Do you think the 3 names, 100% green, standard, and basic, are good names?
I kind of feel like basic should be called the standard because that is the requirement of the state, which is like standard requirement. And I feel like we should give the standard kind of a better name
I agree.
because it is more renewable energy by quite a bit. It's double the amount as the more basic option. So maybe like the, I don't know. Yeah, I don't have a suggestion, but I kind of feel like it should have a better name for the standard.
Partial green.
The key point of the one in the center is that it's the default. And so I think standard reinforces the idea that it's what most people are going to get. In basic is an alternative. But I did ask the question. So others with feedback of standard and basic?
I just want to say for the competitive people in the world that they're going to want to be better than standard. So that's a good reason to call standard the default. You know what I mean? Like people are like, oh, standard, but I could be better than standard. You know what I mean? So that's part of why I know that's a little psychobabble, but I kind of feel like standard is actually a good thing because people are like, oh, standard, this is just where I should be. Oh, but look where I could be if I was better than standard.
So what were the names you were proposing?
Oh no, I was just like, I think standard's fine because it makes
Okay.
people want to be better than that.
Okay. My guess is that we have free reign to change these names and discuss it and field test it. And I guess if we were asked next week, I would say, consider saying, these are our, we're interested in feedback. This is what we've gotten so far. We might have continued to ask more people whether it invokes the right thing. And if somebody comes up with a better idea, let's adopt it. I think
Yeah, I consider
it's
this
similar to what's
appeal.
been done in other towns. So it's sort of the state of the public relations art right now, I think.
One idea in the basic, everything keep the same except add the word absolute. So people are saying, yeah, I'm doing the absolute minimum when I take the basic. Because that's what it is, right? I mean, that's technically true. It's the absolute minimum that you have to do. And so to the point made a moment ago, you kind of want to dissuade them away from the standard, right? And
I like that. It's kind of a subtle negative on the basic without being overtly.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
one sucks if you have to do it. Other opinions on that idea?
Yeah, I think minimum is a good word for the basic, yeah. Or adding it in somehow.
It does have the word minimum already. Should it say absolute minimum?
Is there any difference in technically between, well, emotionally there's a difference between minimum and absolute minimum, but in practice they're the same.
Yeah, it's marketing.
Yep. And the font will become even smaller and harder to read.
Unless they think unless they think absolute minimum is the price.
Good
Well,
point.
does
Because everybody wants to pay
It
the
is.
the absolute least they can for power. I don't know. That's only just a devil's advocate there.
Well, it is the absolute minimum for people who are looking for that in price.
It is
you're
indeed.
right on, Eileen.
True, yeah.
Is the
Okay.
DPU gonna have a problem with it? Because every time we even imply that somebody is going to save money, we have to immediately say that we can't guarantee it. So I just wonder if they would have a problem with that wording.
It doesn't say the absolute minimum price. It says the absolute minimum renewable energy.
I'm trying to stay away from prices at all. I'm assuming offhand that this presentation does not have to be reviewed by the GPU, but we will talk to Peregrine, I guess, briefly about it this week anyway, just to make sure we're not in trouble.
Yeah, one of the other things that I think that we should do in this, trying to get people to convert over, is to just do our own research around the time of November to some of the other electrical companies and see what their prices are so that they have that comparison. Because I know when I first got onto public power, the kilowatt hour prices with the other companies were a lot higher.
Correct.
And I think that would be good to have that on there.
So I think that's a good suggestion of seeing what we can say in the fall, as I think we've learned a couple different times, we got to be very careful talking about prices. But other than that, and as I think I said, there is a lot to be done about educating people about alternate energy suppliers. I wasn't, in this way of presenting it, we weren't committing to do a bunch of education about that in this time frame. But if we feel we have that enough information together, we can certainly add that in. It certainly is confusing for people who are trying to make a good decision. Part of what I think we're pitching here is that over 99% of the participants in the community choice plans today just do the default. Less than 1% have made the switch. So we think that, then people will move over to the new plans and have no action to take. So we're not sure how many people will actually be motivated to either consider going up or down. We're guessing from human nature that it's not a large number, but we don't know.
I just noticed something in 2020, the minimum is 16% of class 1 renewable with the RPS, but then it's 20% when you include the clean energy standard. Should we be quoting the 20% or the 16%?
I was keying off of other sites where we're doing the RPS requirement and not trying to add all that other stuff in, which gets a bit confusing. Plus, I don't actually know how the clean energy standard changes over time. We can certainly, again, is that something we need to deal with for next week? Or
No.
we really were talking about the 3 plans for the selectmen, saying this is what we're doing. This is perhaps more of an issue. Okay, as we roll this out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that.
If you look at some of these websites and they get some detail, and I get confused, and I wonder what most people, it's really, it's crazy.
So I had one other thought on as you presented it. I think it's worth saying to the Board of Selectmen, who may not all know, that the price is not yet final. And we're still waiting to hear on the clean energy standard, or the clean peaking standard. Just
right. I think we need. I will try to have a call with at least get a confirmation of that from Peregrine and the town manager's office later this week or early next week to make sure that remains true. I wasn't planning to put anything in writing about prices.
I agree with that. I just, as I was listening to what you were saying, I was making some notes.
Maybe I get, maybe we get Christie or Kim to comment on that. So it's more the price, discussion about price is more between them and the board, not, and we're guests. We're not, yeah.
So my understanding, so that's good. On I'm flipping back to the three names. What's on the slide is our current proposal. We're not asking them to approve it. We're just going to start using it. And unless we get severe adverse negative feedback, or we get somebody has a really clever idea that flips our thinking, we're going to use these. And we're not asking their permission, we're just going to use it. Is that the approach?
That was my approach. I don't know, Carol, Eileen?
Yeah, I agree with that.
I'm good with that too. I was
It's,
just making it explicit, but I do think we should try to test it, particularly with these early meetings like this one.
Mhm.
Can you go to the last slide? I wanted to talk about the two things we're asking the board to vote on, unless somebody had something else. So we, the current program is called Community Choice Aggregation. And we're making a proposal to the board to rename the program to Westboro Power Choice. I wanted to have a vote on that so that we could say Sustainable Westboro voted to make this recommendation, and it's not John making it or some ad hoc group. It's Sustainable Westboro. So can I have a motion on that name change?
So moved.
A second?
I'll second it.
Okay, so votes on changing the name to Westboro Power Choice as a proposal to the Board of Selectmen on the 23rd of June. All in favor, you can raise your hand. Or say aye if you're on
I
the,
say aye, yes.
Aye.
any opposed or abstentions? Okay, so we have a vote on that. The previous slide, John? I forgot the other one we were going to vote on. Oh, the September 1st. So the other thing we were going to propose to the Board of Selectmen is to basically do no announcement, no public discussion, no press release until September 1st. And that would leave us September, October is the window to update people where they have to change their plan during that time period. And that's the proposal we're planning to make. People, do we have a motion to make that proposal to the Board of Selectmen?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion on that date? Any alternative date people would like to propose, or that's what we're planning to do right now?
Just quick comment, we talked about this a little bit, and, that's actually the Monday before Labor Day, a week ahead. There might be some pushback, we think, from the town, possibly somebody may say, can you do it after Labor Day? And that'd be fine too, We thought September 1 was a good sort of pivotal point.
It's
I think
primary day.
It's also primary day, yes.
I think it gives us enough runway to both on the front side to get our materials together, and then on the back side to get the word out. So I'm in favor of September 1st. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, so those two recommendations will be officially from Sustainable Westboro, and John will be doing this presentation on June 23rd.
We have a tentative plan to talk with Kim Foster, the Assistant Town Manager, and Shelby Marshall on Thursday morning. I've minimally, put the invitation out, would include, Eileen, Carol, myself, and Pete, if all available. It was important for us to get Shelby lined up as the point person on the board, make sure she's comfortable, and of course, and Kim is Christy Williams is appointee for this process. We may or may not include Peregrine at that. If they're available, we'll try to do that also.
Yeah, I gather from, I think it was Christie's comment back that she's pretty, she wants to have Peregrine at the meeting.
Yeah, it was Kim, I think, or Chris, I can't remember which, yeah.
Whoever said it seemed pretty firm that they wanted Peregrine at the meeting.
Yeah, I think from their viewpoint, I think that's right. Peregrine knows what they're talking about. I think the town staff is not as comfortable.
Yes.
And very frankly, we all know that the town budget's going to have to be adjusted, and there's the town manager's office is going to be really busy the next 90 days, sorting through all the ramifications of that. So I'm sure they want to get out of as much of this stuff as possible. It's going to be tough.
Okay, thank you, John,
Okay.
Carol, and Eileen for the work in putting this together. Next update was from Cheryl and me on the Green Community Competitive Grant. A brief update. Cheryl, do you want to start this off, and I'll fill in if needed?
Sure, sorry. We submitted the grant obviously before the last meeting, and we just heard back last week from the Kelly Brown in the state agency, and her people were just wanting some clarification on a few items to do with the LEDs. And so we got Eversource to send that to them, which they did punctually. And so now we just keep waiting. I guess that's the update.
Yeah, I guess it was kind of good news that we didn't get thrown out immediately. They're doing their due diligence. It was kind of detailed questions about number of hours of operation of systems and stuff, of the lights and stuff. The only other thing I wanted to say in the green community space is that we are pending for the police cruisers town meeting vote. And with the town budget being tight, I wondered if the police cruisers would be deferred. And if it got deferred, if the Green Community Program would allow us to amend our submission to remove them so that we don't end up with, we don't spend the money that they give us. So that's the only thing, but we'll find that out at town meeting, which is only a week away.
Right, okay.
Updates on Eversource pipeline. John?
Let me make it quick. I will send out a more detailed email to everybody on this list, including the several people who are not here. Eversource has yet to do anything regarding a submission to the state, the Energy Facility Siting Board, which is the key process. We're not entirely sure what that means. I will summarize that. I will summarize what I've gleaned from the process that's going on in Ashland. And as many of you may know, the Attorney General Maura Healey has filed a petition with the DPU saying she wants them to rethink the whole business, or work with the gas companies in Massachusetts to rethink the whole business model of how they make money and how they're going to align themselves with the state's goals for the Global Warming Solutions Act. This may or may not save us, because that process could be stopped by the DPU or embraced and taken 8 years. We don't know, but I'll try to summarize this in about 5 paragraphs. And so, but right now, we're in a waiting game.
One action that I don't think happened before last meeting, I think it's happened since last meeting, was the town, with input from John and me and the town council, drafted a letter, a formal letter to Eversource legal department, stating all of our reasons for not wanting this. And I thought it was quite powerful and strongly stated from Christy Williams.
There's also the letter that she sent to the state representatives. There are 3 state reps and the state senator saying why we oppose it and asking for their support.
Yeah, John, can you share that with everybody? I thought those were quite helpful.
Yeah,
documents.
yeah, let me get that. I may not have the latest of one thing. I missed one. You and I can make sure we got the latest, and I'll share it with you later.
That would be great.
Okay.
Any
So-
questions on Eversource pipeline? Eric, so Katie's not on the call, so we'll skip the waste reduction, and Eric on the tree policy.
Sure. Okay. So where things stand on that is I met this gentleman named Matt Cahill, and he sent me an email a couple years ago when I went to a thing for the Westboro Community Land Trust, and he worked for the state. And he sent me an email, and by the time I reached out to him, he's no longer there, but I got his office name. And long story short, there's a woman named Julie Coop, who is the Massachusetts Urban and Community Forester. And so basically, the information I need all collated together, backed up with the science, the sort of the force of other towns doing it and whatnot, best practices. My belief is, and I'm looking at another screen right now, what makes a strong urban and community forest program, management plan, professional staffing, ordinances, policies, regulations. So instead of reinventing the wheel, I've reached out to her and left her 2 messages thus far. There's another person that's more the Western Mass part of the state, so I'm going to try her next if I don't hear back from Julie Coop. But basically, the good news is the information that I'm trying to seek is out there. And what I think probably the next step to do would be to write up my list of the questions I have, and I'll share a few of what I mean by that. And I just wanted to check with you, Pete, if it was okay, and use this email address that you used to give me the link to tonight's meeting, and basically put that out there with the questions I'm trying to answer, and kind of some of the broken down individual tasks, and potentially, and try to enroll and invite other people here on Sustainable Westboro to step forward. So what do I mean by the questions? Well, some of these are generated by my conversation with the DPW manager a month and a half or so back. And one of them was, what are the best types of trees? So if we're gonna be planting trees, what types of trees should we plant? What's the current status of our tree canopy? What's it like? It's in bad shape, but it'd be nice. He was striving for it. I like this. I think it kind of comes from his military background. So what's our baseline right now? So then as we come back 1, 3, 5, 10 years in the future, are we moving in the direction we want to go? So, and there are some websites that do sound whatnot, isn't tight, that could help us answer that. What type of community involvement or involvement from other community members and stakeholders should we seek or can we count on? So that's sort of a question I have here. And again, this comes from my conversation with Chris at DPW. Who should be held accountable? Because right now on paper, we got a good plan in place. Each year, a report's supposed to be written to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen is supposed to hold someone's feet to the fire, and it's just basically a paper tiger. And luckily, everyone's heart that I've spoken to is in the right place. No one's advocating against the idea of a more robust tree canopy. But so I'm sort of just trying to pull it all together and then work as you and I spoke, Pete, on the phone with, in essence, presenting something to Climate Action, the CAP committee, that could go into the town's master plan as to, in essence, and this is what I don't know yet, like, is there a number we should strive for each year or a percentage growth over time? So I'm still figuring that out. But the thing that, and if it's okay, I imagine it is, what all of you will get is a list of these questions, and the definable, relatively no task in and of itself will be that lengthy, but the tasks that need to be performed, and someone might go, oh, you know what, I'd be happy to take that on. If not, at least what I'll have is a detailed checklist for myself as to how to proceed. So I'd say some good news. So far, it's good that I've got this connection, and I'm just looking forward to actually reaching out to her and you know,
Yep.
picking her brain. So that's where things stand.
I think that sounds great, Eric. Thank you. And Chris has included a tree policy strategy within the draft work we're doing in the climate action plan. And so we expect that to be part of what we're going forward with. I also have had a friend point out that there is some grant money in regard to urban tree management and stuff. I will send you a couple of links related to grant programs. They're matching grants, so the town has to put in half the money and the state will match it 50-50. But I can update you on that with an email. And somebody is chatting here.
I can answer that question, you know, when you're done, Pete. You're talking, Pete.
Yeah. So that and I also have come across some things with the Mass Audubon. So I think Mass Audubon would be another group you could reach out to that
Okay.
might have some resources that we can leverage.
Good, yeah, and to some of the questions that Chris had for me, you know, I've been poking around, and the Arbor Day Foundation has some good ones. As far as the scope, are we talking? Am I envisioning just this being trees that are kind of on school or town land, or a wider thing? I think starting with the school and the town, because there's some leverage there, is a place to begin. But I definitely would like to expand it beyond that. You know, some towns, as I understand it, have ordinances when property is purchased, and it might be there's different ordinances for a quarter acre versus a full acre or more, that trees of a certain diameter have to be left alone. And you see that there's nothing like that here in Westboro. If anyone's been up next to the Eli Whitney house, there's a probably 1.5 acre plot of land. It's basically been clear cut in preparation of being sold. So they didn't even give the potential new homeowner the chance of leaving any of the mature trees on that land. And other towns have, I don't know if they're incentives, it might be even just a hoop that they have to jump through. So, you know, I'm thinking long-term to try to incentivize the builders, if you will. And there's, to be honest, not that much land left in Westboro that still could be built on, but trying to save some of those trees on that land as well. So all of it, I guess, is the short answer to your question.
I've got a question. I mean, on top of that, so when you say there's not that much land left to develop in Westboro, like that seems hard for me to believe. You know, like I live on Ruggles Street and there's a lot of trees.
I guess I can get the number. I'm going based on what I learned when I was on the board of directors of the Westboro Community Land Trust, and we would frequently put a map up, and that map would have color coded like what's the properties that are out there that might come for sale. So and it is a surprisingly small number. So, and the map had 30 different colors. There's Sudbury Valley trustees. There's, you know, it's town land. There's right of ways for power lines that are buried. So it's hard to tell when you just drive around how much. But there's most of it is, you know. Now, granted, some of it is someone's backyard, and they may decide to clear cut it. But I'll actually make a note to myself to try to get that data, because we know it pretty close to, you know, within a couple dozen acres.
Neat, thanks.
Sure.
Any other tree policy questions for Eric? Anybody who would like to learn more, kind of become part of Eric's subcommittee, become a subcommittee, I'm sure he'd be happy to have help, so.
Subcommittee one. Yes, I'll send out that email, and a lot of people are not on the call tonight. We'll see if people want to swoop in and help out a little bit and then move on.
Yep.
So
Yep.
good. Thanks.
So we're to the end of our time slot here. I did just want to keep everybody up to date on the climate action plan work and the master plan. I guess first, start with the master plan. Because of the coronavirus, the master plan has delayed activities for about 90 days, and they expect to recover 30 days of that. So on the full project, they've announced a 60-day delay, which primarily because the next phase, a lot of their next phase work, our next phase work in the master plan, was community outreach meetings and stuff that is not really possible in this environment. So they are working to become creative and get ideas through websites and social media and other ways of surveys and so forth. So there is activities, and hopefully you'll be seeing some of those. I will try to work with Carol Fisher primarily on using the Sustainable Westboro to keep getting the word out. I think it's an important part of providing our input into the master plan. And I've shared some of this. There's this ideas form that you can put information out, and there's a lot of posts already. I think, Eric, I saw you had posted some stuff. So you can go and give, thumbs up to Eric's posts. The climate action plan is not delayed our schedule at this point. We are continuing to meet monthly and are making good progress. We have the phase we're in is kind of the culmination of some brainstorming where we put together a long list of ideas. We call them strategies, but they're all different sizes, but we have like 75 different ideas for things we want to be doing. And we're beginning the prioritization of those, which will then also result in kind of merging and reframing them, particularly the ones that get prioritized. One of the things that's happened in the climate action plan was I presented to some of the master plan people what was going on, and it was very helpful as it allowed me to understand better how to plug the content of the climate action plan work into the master plan, which will then get, let's say, more weight and more visibility within the town government by being plugged into the master plan. I think there was a broad agreement by the leadership of the master plan team to do that. And so I'm excited that we're going to be able to work these two together. The fact that they've been delayed actually helps because it gives me more time to create content to plug into their new timeline. Any questions on climate action plan or master plan? I am planning to just keep a line item called new business on the agenda, but I had no new business. Does anybody have anything else they'd like to bring up at this time?
Just really quickly, Pete, this is Deb. I started to create a Google group after our last meeting, and I sent an invite to most people, and I think I only got like 7 or 8 people to sign up for it. So I just resent the invite to everybody on your list. But if there's anyone that you think like I'm just going by the list that you just sent
Yes.
the email to yesterday. So anyhow, I'm just saying if there's more people that want to join it or that you think should be on it, let me know. And
Thank
just
you.
for everybody on this list, I did just send you an email, and the address sustainable-westboro@googlegroups.com is the email address. So if you want to email everybody on the list, that's how you do it.
Excellent. Thank you for that. And with that, do we get storage capacity where we can save documents, or is it just a Google group for distribution of email?
I believe it's just a Google group for distribution of email, but if we want to store documents, like I have some room on a Google Drive that we could do that.
Okay.
You want me to make a shared file for the group?
Why don't we hold off and see if we have a need, but I appreciate that offer.
Okay.
There's certain documents we're supposed to be publishing publicly, and we are publishing publicly on the town website. But I think there could be working documents that we might want to share. The stuff that Eric just said he was going to send around, for example, could be all put in one place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, if people want it, I can create a shared folder for the group.
Would people find that valuable?
Yeah, anytime we get access to that information is good, I think. I didn't just get that email that she said she sent out. I just checked. I haven't gotten it, so I just want to make sure I'm on the list.
Are you Stephanie Kelly who just emailed me?
Oh, yes. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, so I direct added you to the group as soon as you emailed me.
Okay.
Okay, I believe that's it for the meeting, unless anybody else has new business that they want to raise.
Nope, I'm good.
And thank you, Deb, for the help with that Google group. I think that will be helpful. Move for adjournment, anybody?
So moved.
Second, anybody?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adios.
All right, bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you
Bye.
very
Take care,
much.
everyone.
Bye.
Goodbye, Eric. Goodbye, Deb. Thanks.